Now life is punctuated by events, isn't it? You're born, you go to school, you turn 18, you're old enough to drink and do whatever, get to buy a house. Our female friends have that ticking time bomb where they want to have kids. And there is definitely a point in your life where you have to own a GS. Sports fans, we're near Almeria and we're on the all-new, we're on the new BMW R 1250 GS Adventure, and we're going on an adventure. As with the standard GS, there's not a massive amount different to last year, except this engine. Obviously it gets a capacity hike, a cubic hike, and the shift cam technology. So there's a few other little tweaks here and there, there's a few extra bonuses you get, but otherwise the main focus is this engine. I mean, how do you make one of the best bikes in the world even better? It's difficult. It's really, I mean, it's obviously progressed over years and years of development. And I'm sure that more power wasn't on top of the list of GS owners, but BMW have done that anyway, so chapeau. Looking at UK sales figures, if the GS and GSA were combined, they would be, the bike would be by far and away the most successful in the UK. Honda's PCV, as always, is the best-selling bike, although it's a scooter, a thingy-majig. It's the best-selling bike in the UK, and BMW GS does roughly 2,300, and the GSA is roughly 1,900, so just under 2 grand. And combined, that's obviously 4,300, just over 4,300. So, you know, 5 years ago, I would never have even dreamt of owning one. Now, I'd have one tomorrow, or today. It does everything a sports bike does. It really does. Just with the added comfort and joy. It's like the Airbus A380 of the motorcycle. It's like travelling first class on an A380. So shift cam then, I mean, I won't bore you with the intricacies just yet, but you can't feel it working. It's not like a VTEC or any other sort of tangible variable valve timing technology. It's very smooth, it's very subtle, but you can definitely feel that extra spice low down. It definitely gives that an instant push. I think it's 9 horsepower as well, obviously with the added cubes and everything else. It's an extra 9 horsepower you get, which, you know, it's nothing groundbreaking. It's not going to change the game, but shift cam so far is pretty awesome. This is the thing I love about it. It just flies around corners. You wouldn't think it weighs a quarter of a ton, well, a third of a ton. Oh, this is just beautiful. Just beautiful. 20 degrees. The old Bridgestone A41s. As you've seen, almost a sports bike tyre for the adventure market. And let's have it. And also, this is the first time I've tried the new next generation suspension. So it's heavily revised for the GS and GSA. I know Chris tried it on the standard GS launch. So you've got load compensating technology, and it's definitely I've got it in dynamic mode, and it definitely feels far easier, more sort of compliant. The old bike was a bit more computerized. You could feel that connection. It's just effortless. It is just like an Airbus A380, first class. The thing is, this sort of nadgery stuff you couldn't get away with on a sports bike anyway. There's that innate flickability, stability, and that comfort and joy. Got to keep remembering I've turned off the ABS and TC to be able to do some wheelies and skids, but these downhill hairpins, you got to be a little bit careful about trailing the brakes, and it's very easy because of just how capable it is. It's so easy to get carried away. I'm trying not to. Oh, it's strong. And of course it sounds the same, it looks the same, and it's very subtle, but the motor is definitely so much stronger. Is that wet? Yeah, it's wet. It's a wetty. It's that initial hit, that punch you get from opening the throttle. It's almost like the crank's much lighter, or the internals are carry less inertia. It may sound like a wet fart, but it delivers way more than just a wetty. Yeah, this suspension is definitely much nicer to ride hard. We've got a little off-road route later on as well, so not that every GS8 owner takes their bike off-road, but it'll be a nice test. And of course, if you haven't seen it yet, we've got this lovely dash that's been rolled out across the GS range, and of course very similar to the new S1000RR, just with a slightly different layout. So much nicer than the old one. Way more 21st century, mate. I think I'd definitely choose the GSA over the GS, and mainly that's down to looks and just the extra, obviously the fuel tank and the extra benefits of being an added adventure bike, but mainly the looks. I think the sort of mag cast wheels look a bit orthopedic, whereas the spoked, you cannot beat spoked wheels on a GS. And of course 20 gazillion litres worth of fuel as well. And BMW claim that you'll be using less gears, you'll be changing gear less, and I totally agree with that. You know, with this wider spread of power, you definitely don't need to change gear, but there's something about knocking it down for second for these type of corners and settling the bike with higher revs. Now, I can understand people being intimidated by the size of the things and the weight and everything else, but I think you just need a bit of time in the saddle. I don't think, you know, a half hour or an hour demo on UK roads is going to solve that. You need to get engrossed in the subject matter for a good couple of hours, nice roads, find a bit of confidence. I mean, it's not like the confidence doesn't come soon enough, but like I said, it's for shorter pilots, you know, the vertically challenged. Even though the seat can be adjusted, that's not enough for some people. This is what it's all about, kids. I still get a bit of a vibey hand after a good session in the saddle, but it's not as bad as some of the bikes I've ridden, but that inherent buzz you get from the bike and through the bars is always going to cause a slight issue. But that, you know, that's my only real gripe. Whoa, it's a little bit greasy. That's a good point, actually. Obviously, apart from the engine, the big news for the GS this year was the fact they'd gone away from Brembos. and they've got their own branded brakes from a mountain bike company. Obviously that's a cost saving measure, but there's no performance deficit from what I can see, and we've been riding quite hard. There's absolutely no performance deficit whatsoever, and I don't think BMW would do that to the best selling bike in the world, apart from the Harley. Best selling bike in the world, why would they do that? So averaging 37.1 mpg. I must admit I've been rather heavy handed, so I could forgive you for that one. Lamella, Eric Lamella. Oh, by the way, just a quick shout out to Magunas. Well, obviously the day after, this is fresh, the day after the romping at the Emirates, 4-2. We beat the scum. Oh, look at this. Look at this. Whoa, this is pretty cool. I'll just stop talking for a minute. This is pretty gizmo. Like I say, I'm really impressed with these brakes. Just because it has got Brembo on the side, doesn't mean to say they don't perform. Oh, where are we going? This is your captain speaking. I'd like to show you around the cockpit of the R1250 GS Adventure. So this is the dash, the new dash. Room here for sat nav. This is the extender bender for the screen. Throttle on this side, modes very easy. Heated grips, start, stop. Turn this off, ABS and traction control. Menu button, and you use the spinny navy thing for that. Indicators, dick lights, cruise control, and that was your tour of the R1250 GS Adventure cockpit. Hola! Stopped for a bit of luncheon, so I thought it'd be a good opportunity to run through the bike, bit of tech, bit of front to back-ish. So obviously the big news is the shift cam technology. So I won't bore you with the intricacies, but basically it works at 5,000 RPM, roughly 5,000 RPM. It goes from partial load to full load, and you get that extra beef. Or it figures out by the throttle position sensor, it figures out that you're giving it more gas, so it may open earlier or later depending on where you are. But it's very subtle, it's very easy, it doesn't change the bike in any way, it's not aggressive, but it does give that extra punch, it gives that extra sort of oomph, which when you've ridden its rivals, the KTM for example, the Triumph, you get that innate V-twin or triple punch, and this was lacking it. Now, it certainly isn't. So front to back then, what have we got? Well, very little change really, but the brakes is a big talking point. So we've gone from Brembo to Haynes. Now, if you ask me, I prefer the feel of these. Obviously, it's a cost-cutting measure. It's an economic issue. So fair play. I mean, for me, the feel and the progression and the initial bite is better than the old bike. I feel more confident going downhill corners, into bends. These brakes, for me, are far superior. Okay, a little bit superior. Now, MCN did a test at Bruntingthorpe, apparently, a scientific test, and the older brakes came out on top. They stopped sooner, I don't know how much, but it can't have been that much. But again, for me, it's all about feel, it's all about that lever feel, and I think I prefer these brakes, so chapeau. The dash is also new, it's also standard, so last year you could buy it, I think it was about 600 quid. Now it comes as standard, so there's another few hundred quid saved. So onto the suspension, we have a revised dynamic ESA, so it's the same upgrade as the GS, and it just feels a bit more better supported. When you're riding harder, you get a better connection with the tarmac. Now this load compensation, it kind of felt disconnected with the previous model, but this is definitely a more refined package, so we have a winner. We also have an LED headlamp, which is also standard. On the bikes we've been riding, we've got Riding Modes Pro with the additional modes, obviously. Dynamic Track Control, DTC, ABS Pro, Hill Start Control, which is a must for smaller riders, and Dynamic Brake Assistant. Now, this is a nice little touch. So BMW found out that riders doing emergency stops would still have a bit of throttle on. So rather than grabbing a load of brake and having a bit of power and just sort of pushing the front a bit more, the bike now notices that if the throttle's open and under heavy braking, it will cut the power automatically. So again, that's a nice little touch, that. Also something that Chris spotted in Barnstormer, the brushed alley tank, which is a nice touch. I think that's an extra. I think it's £300. So talking of money, what does it cost? Well, this model right here that I've been riding for most of the day, the GS Adventure TE, well, it's not cheap, but it's a lot of bike for the buck. It's £17,550. It's imminent, so it'll be in dealers very soon, possibly even by this weekend. So by the time the video is out, we might even see them in the dealers. The GS Rally TE, that will be £18,100, and again, be in dealers very soon. So this is one of the most technologically advanced bikes built at the moment. It's also one of the most capable in lots of different environments. We've done a road ride most of this morning. We're going to go and do some off-road stuff now, so time to get dirty. So we're just going to go do some off-road stuff. Put some off-road tyres on. Whoa, bloody hounders like it as well. Bloody hell. But I mean, overall, I am seriously impressed with this shift cam. It's just added a bit more excitement, a bit more razzmatazz to the GS engine. As I said before, I don't think necessarily the GS owners wanted more power, but it's more exciting. You know, when you ride the KTM and the Triumph, they've got that inherent V-twin punch and the triple mid-range punch, and it's something the GS has lacked a little bit, but that initial punch from this motor is absolutely Sue Perkins. Absolutely Sue Perkins. Now, if we're going to put comparisons, then I think the KTM is still more exciting, it's more sporty, but it doesn't do the all-round job of the GS. It's as simple as that. Now, I've heard a lot of people say that they don't like the shift cam, or they don't notice a difference. I mean, I don't know what you're riding, whether you're in rain mode or I don't know, I can't quite work it out, but it is a big difference for me. Here we go then. Look at me, I'm Colin McGregor, or what's his name? No, Ewan McGregor. Charlie. I can't see anything. Dust, anyone? Ooh, Rocky Balboa. Fucking hell. Yeah! Massive air. Cannot see anything. So as the sun sets around Almeria, I guess the $1 million question is, do you want to trade in your 2018 GS Adventure or GS for the 2019? And I'd say, well, yes. I mean, I think it's a no-brainer for me. If I had the money, and you know, I think it all comes down to PSP and finance deals for a lot of people. But I think if you've got the readies to do it, it's a no-brainer. Get on, Nige. Whoa! Keep forgetting I'm on off-road tyres. The engine's better. It's faster. I think it's smoother. The actual throttle connection is smoother. I think personally the brakes are better. The suspension's better. It's just whether you've got 17.5 Gs to spank on the fully loaded TE model, but I haven't got £7.50, so but my advice to you is yes.